She dragged a lawn chair into our backyard, set it up by our pool, and told me she'd be over every afternoon with her kids. Not asked, told. That was the moment I realized. My neighbor wasn't just friendly, she was entitled as hell. And it didn't start with the lawn chair. It started a week earlier with a knock on my door. You ever move into your dream home just to have someone try and claim it like it's theirs? Yeah, that happened to me. And it all started with a knock on my door at 8:15 a.m. on a Sunday morning. My name is Kayla. I'm 29, newly married, and my husband and I just bought our first house in a quiet suburb. We'd been saving for years. It had a cozy kitchen, a garden I couldn't wait to plant tomatoes in, and best of all, a private, beautiful swimming pool in the backyard. We'd only been there for 6 days when I first met Linda. I was watering the potted plants on my porch when a woman in yoga pants and a messy bun appeared on the other side of the fence. She waved with the kind of forced cheer that made me immediately suspicious. "Hi, I'm Linda from next door. Welcome to the neighborhood." Before I could even say thank you, her next words were, "Just wanted to let you know. My boys are so excited about your pool. It's so nice to see a family move in who understands community." I blinked. "Wait, my pool?" I laughed politely and said something awkward like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're excited." I figured she was just being friendly. You know, neighborly banter. I didn't think much of it. That was mistake number 1. The next day, her kids were in our backyard. Without asking, I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard splashing and screaming. My husband, Derek, looked out the window and said, Babe, are those kids in the pool?" I ran outside and sure enough, 2 boys, maybe 10 and 13, were cannonballing into the water like it was a public pool. Linda sat on a lawn chair we didn't own, sipping from a thermos and scrolling through her phone like she was in her own backyard. I was stunned. "Linda," I called, trying to keep my voice polite but firm. "Hey, I don't remember giving anyone permission to be back here." She looked up, totally unbothered. "Oh, hope it's okay. The boys were just dying to swim and I figured, since you weren't using it." I stared at her. I didn't even know how to respond. That night, Derek and I installed a latch on the gate. Nothing dramatic, just enough to keep people out. But oh, Linda noticed. The very next morning she knocked on our door again. This time with her arms crossed and her lips tight. "Was the lock really necessary?" she asked, her tone way less sweet now. I was done being nice. "Yes," I said. "It's our pool. We don't feel comfortable with people just letting themselves in." Her nostrils flared. "You're not from around here, are you? In this neighborhood we share. My kids have always had access to that backyard. The previous owner let us." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I took a breath and replied, "Well, we're the owners now, and we didn't agree to that." Linda glared at me like I'd personally drowned her puppy. She left without another word. But that was just the beginning, because the next time she came over, she didn't ask. She announced, "We'll just keep our stuff here." That was what Linda said when she marched into our backyard, dragging a giant plastic storage bin full of pool toys and sunscreen. No knock, no text, just opened the gate and walked in like she owned the place. I was speechless. Again. "Linda, what are you doing?" I managed. "Well," she huffed, setting the bin down near the patio, "since the kids will be swimming here all summer, it just makes sense to store their things here. Saves me trips back and forth." I stood there blinking. Was she serious? "Linda," I said slowly, "you can't just use our backyard like it's yours." She gave me a look like I was the unreasonable one. "You know, Kayla, I was really hoping you'd be more neighborly," she said. "This kind of attitude, it's not what this community is about." I was done. Absolutely done. I picked up the bin, walked it right back to her side of the fence, and set it down. "Your kids are not allowed in our yard. Period." She gasped like I'd slapped her. "Wow, so selfish. No wonder you two don't have kids." That hit a nerve. And she knew it. I slammed the gate shut and walked back inside, shaking. That night, I emailed our HOA and filed a complaint. I also ordered a motion sensor camera and a giant no trespassing sign online. I was tired of being nice. But Linda wasn't done. A few days later, I came home from work and found a beach umbrella set up next to the pool. And a cooler. And a half-empty bag of chips. All clearly not ours. I checked the camera footage. Linda had been there from 1 p.m. to nearly 4. Alone. I lost it. I printed the footage, put it in an envelope, and walked next door. Her teenage son opened the door. "Mom's in the back," he said, without even asking who I was. Of course she was. I walked around the side of the house and saw her, sitting in a bikini on a lounge chair she dragged from somewhere, sunglasses on, earbuds in like she was on vacation. "Linda," I snapped, "get out of my yard. Now." She lifted one earbud, didn't even sit up. "Excuse me? I'm relaxing. On property that isn't yours," I hissed. I dropped the envelope in her lap. "That's footage from the camera we installed. Next time it's going to the police." That got her attention. She sat up, snatched the envelope, flipped through the photos. Then her face turned red. "You're such a stuck-up b****, she spat. "And you're trespassing," I said, turning to leave. The next morning, we woke up to a letter shoved under our front door. Handwritten, on yellow legal paper, to the residents of our address. It began. Linda had drafted her own official complaint, stating that we were discriminating against her as a single mother by denying her children access to basic recreational facilities. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or both. "Is she serious?" Derek said, staring at the letter. "Basic recreational facilities? That's our damn pool." I took a deep breath. "She's trying to play the victim." "I'm calling the HOA again," Derek muttered. But I had a better idea. I went online, printed out our property boundaries, HOA rules on trespassing, and city ordinances on private property rights. I compiled them all into a nice little folder. Then I made a copy of the footage showing her lounging in our yard and added a typed-up statement. "Linda, last name, has repeatedly entered our property without permission." I hand-delivered the folder to the HOA president. He looked exhausted. "You're not the first neighbor she's done this to," he sighed. "But you're the first to document everything." That evening, I got an email from HOA confirming that Linda had been formally warned and that further trespassing would result in legal action. I wanted to celebrate, but Derek and I stayed cautious. People like Linda didn't go down quietly. And sure enough, 2 nights later we heard something. It was nearly midnight. I was brushing my teeth when Derek whispered from the hallway, "Someone's in the backyard." I grabbed my phone and opened the live feed. There she was, in a hoodie, sneaking around the pool. I hit record. Then I called the non-emergency police line. "Calm. Direct. We have someone trespassing on our property. We have footage." The officers showed up in 10 minutes. Linda was still there. She tried to play it off. "I was just looking for my kids' floaties." The cops weren't buying it. They gave her a verbal warning and told her not to step foot on our property again or she'd be cited. She left, fuming. We watched from the upstairs window, my hand still shaking. "It's not over," I whispered. The next day, Linda posted in our neighborhood Facebook group. Title: Unfriendly Newcomers Making This Place Toxic. The post was a rant, full of half-truths and exaggerations. She claimed we installed cameras to spy on children, and were harassing a single mom just trying to give her kids summer joy. I laughed. But the comments? Oh, the comments were glorious. People started replying things like, "Linda, not this again. Didn't you try to use the Johnson's hot tub last year? Maybe stop treating your neighbors' homes like public parks." Turns out we weren't her first targets, just her first real obstacle. That same afternoon, I received a knock on the door. It was the HOA president and 2 board members, holding a copy of Linda's official complaint. "Kayla," the president said, "we just wanted to meet face to face. Linda's been loud, but we've reviewed your documentation. You're completely in the right." I invited them in, made coffee, and even gave them a tour of the security setup. By the time they left, they were shaking their heads and muttering things like, "Unbelievable." 3 days later, Linda got served. Not just from the HOA, from the city. Turns out, trespassing on private property after a formal warning, and doing it again on camera, is enough for a citation. She showed up at our door one last time. Not with a smile. Not with toys. But with a clipboard. "I'm starting a petition," she said coldly, "to have the HOA president removed. You people are all in on it." I didn't even flinch. "Cool. Want me to print extra copies?" She stormed off. That was 6 weeks ago. We haven't seen her since. No kids in the pool. No lawn chairs mysteriously appearing. No night visits in hoodies. Just peace. And chlorine. Oh, and one last thing. Yesterday I found a listing online. Linda's house is up for rent. I guess she finally figured out. She messed with the wrong house. I still think about how it all started. One smile. One friendly neighbor. One assumption that because we had a pool it was somehow fair game. But here's the thing. Kindness does not mean weakness. And setting boundaries doesn't make you the bad guy. I grew up being told to be nice and don't make waves. So when Linda first stepped over the line, my instinct was to smile through it. But that kind of quiet tolerance, it just feeds entitled people like her. It took me a while, but I found my voice. I learned that defending your space is not rude. It's necessary. And I also learned something else. When you push back calmly, firmly, and with receipts, people notice. And more often than not, they'll stand with you. Not because they hate conflict, but because deep down they're tired of watching entitled people get away with everything. So yeah, this was about a pool. But it became something bigger. It became a reminder that sometimes saying no is the kindest thing you can do. Especially to people who never learned what no means. If this story hit a nerve, you're not alone. We've all had moments where someone crossed a line and expected us to stay silent. But sometimes standing your ground is the loudest, strongest thing you can do. Share your own entitled neighbor stories below. I read every comment. And if you enjoyed this, there's more where that came from. Subscribe because trust me, the next story, it's even wilder.